Aisha Thompson stood before the gleaming glass facade of Haven Medical Center, her hands clutching a worn-out leather briefcase with frayed edges. The morning sunlight reflected off the building's surface, casting shimmering patches of light that seemed to mock the anxiety swirling in her chest. At 29, Aisha had never imagined she'd be applying for a job as a patient care coordinator at such a prestigious hospital. She had once been a passionate elementary school teacher, but budget cuts at her school had pushed her down a thorny path, forcing her to find a way to support her 5-year-old twin daughters, Maya and Zoe. The night before, Aisha had spent the entire evening practicing interview answers in front of the mirror in their tiny bathroom, while Maya and Zoe played with building blocks on the living room floor. The girls didn't understand why their mother was anxious, why she stayed up late with her old laptop, sending out dozens of job applications only to receive polite rejections, or worse, complete silence. "I'll be okay," Aisha whispered to herself, taking a deep breath and smoothing down her neatly ironed navy blue dress. She pushed through the revolving doors and stepped into the hospital's main lobby, where the scent of disinfectant mingled with the fragrance of fresh flowers from the front desk. The marble-tiled grand lobby was so polished that Aisha could see her reflection on the floor. She felt the curious gaze of the receptionist, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile. "You must be Miss Thompson, right? Here for the coordinator interview?" the woman asked warmly. Aisha nodded, forcing a confident smile despite the hammering of her heart. "Conference room A, 7th floor, straight down the hallway, the 3rd door on the right. Mr. Caldwell is waiting for you." "Caldwell?" Aisha repeated, her voice faltering slightly. The name triggered a vague feeling, like a buried memory. She shook her head, telling herself it was just a coincidence. She thoroughly researched Haven Medical Center, one of the top hospitals renowned for its community care programs and commitment to treating patients regardless of financial background. But she had never looked into the hospital's CEO, a mistake she would soon realize might be fate's cruelest joke. The elevator carried Aisha to the 7th floor, each ding marking the rhythm of her heartbeat. When the doors opened, she entered a luxurious hallway adorned with framed artwork. Her heels echoed off the hardwood floor, mingling with her quickened breaths. Standing before the door to conference room A, Aisha took another deep breath and gently knocked. "Come in," a deep male voice called from inside. And at that moment, the blood in her veins seemed to freeze. Aisha pushed open the door, her warm brown eyes meeting the man's gaze at the far end of the long mahogany table. Ethan Caldwell, with neatly combed dark brown hair and fair skin sharply contrasted by a navy blue suit, was holding her resume. But it wasn't the suit or his authoritative posture that stunned her. It was the gray-blue eyes, the eyes that had once looked at her with an intense love that used to light up every morning when they woke beside each other. Those same eyes widened, filled with shock and pain that defied words. Ethan Caldwell, her former lover, the man who had shattered her heart 6 years ago with cruel accusations, the man who had no idea that Maya and Zoe, the little girls waiting for her at daycare, shared those same gray-blue eyes. "Aisha Thompson," Ethan said, his voice hoarse, as if her name were a long-forgotten spell. The pen in his hand dropped to the table, making a slight but piercing sound in the heavy silence. He stood, then sat back down, unsure what to do. I didn't realize it was you." Aisha clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms to stay composed. She couldn't let the past ruin this chance. She needed this job, for Maya and Zoe, the stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, and her daughter's future. "Thank you for taking the time to interview me, Mr. Caldwell," she said evenly, stepping toward the chair across from him. Each step was a monumental effort to keep her face emotionless. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to recover his professional demeanor. "Of course. I've reviewed your file. Very impressive. Teaching background, organizational skills. He paused, as if the words were just placeholders. His eyes scanned her, natural curls pulled back neatly, a simple yet elegant dress, and a hand absent any wedding ring. A flicker of relief crossed his face, but was quickly replaced by confusion. Aisha sat down, placing her briefcase on the table like a shield. She could feel Ethan's gaze, as if trying to pierce the professional armor she had built. 6 years ago, he had looked at her like she was his entire world, held her close in their small apartment, and promised a shared future. But then, one fateful phone call had changed everything. "You're trying to trap me, Aisha." "My mother has proof," he had said coldly. She hadn't had a chance to tell him about the pregnancy, hadn't had time to share the joy. And then he disappeared, leaving her with a broken heart and 2 small lives growing inside her. Now, they sat across each other, separated by a mahogany table, yet the distance between them felt like an ocean. "Can you speak about your experience working with diverse groups?" Ethan asked, his voice returning to normal, but his eyes never left her. Aisha began answering, her voice steady though a storm raged inside. She spoke of her years teaching, working with children from underprivileged backgrounds, and helping them overcome language and financial barriers. She spoke of her passion for listening, connecting people, and ensuring every family was treated fairly. Ethan nodded, but she knew he wasn't hearing her. He was looking at her, searching for the woman he once loved, or perhaps for traces of the betrayal his mother, Eleanor, had convinced him was true. When the interview ended, Aisha stood and politely thanked Ethan. He said, "We'll be in touch by the end of the week," voice dry. But as she turned to leave, he called after her, "Aisha." His voice softened, laced with unnamed sorrow. She stopped, hand gripping the doorknob, but didn't turn back. "It's good to see you again," he said. And those words cut like a blade, reopening old wounds. Aisha left the conference room on trembling legs. She leaned against the hallway wall, breathing deeply to keep the tears at bay. This job was her chance to build a more stable life for her daughters. But working under Ethan and facing him daily meant reliving that painful past. And the biggest secret, that Maya and Zoe were his daughters, hung over her like a ticking time bomb. Aisha knew that sooner or later, the truth would explode. She could only hope she would be strong enough to face it, for her children, and the heart that had once been shattered. Aisha Thompson sat in the worn-out armchair of her small apartment, the dim yellow light from the desk lamp casting shadows over the stack of bills piled on the kitchen table. The room was quiet, with only the sound of steady breathing from Maya and Zoe, her 5-year-old twin daughters, sleeping soundly in the shared bedroom. Aisha held her phone, rereading the email from Haven Medical Center. "Congratulations! You have been accepted for the position of Patient Care Coordinator. Please report on Monday for onboarding." A spark of joy lit within her, but it was quickly extinguished by the memory of Ethan Caldwell's gray-blue eyes during the day interview. The man who had once been her whole world was now her boss, and he had no idea that Maya and Zoe, the little girls with radiant smiles, were his daughters. Aisha closed her eyes, trying to push away the image of Ethan, but the past flooded back like a wave. 6 years ago, she and Ethan were the perfect couple, despite their differences in race and class. She, a passionate black education major, constantly tutors underprivileged children for free. He is a white medical student, the son of a wealthy family, yet humble, with a warm smile and a dream to change the world through medicine. They met at a volunteer event, and love blossomed quickly, intensely, like a summer fire. Aisha remembered the evenings they spent on the couch in her tiny apartment, sharing dreams. Ethan talked about his desire to open a free clinic, while Aisha spoke of her ideal classroom where every child would feel loved. They dreamed of a house with a backyard where their future children could run and play. "You'll be a fantastic mother," Ethan used to whisper, kissing her forehead. Aisha would smile, her heart full of hope. She never imagined that dream would shatter just weeks later. It was a March evening when daffodils had just begun to bloom outside the window. Aisha, then 23, had just found out she was pregnant. 3 pregnancy tests and a visit to the University Health Center had confirmed it. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. The timing wasn't ideal. Ethan was in his final year of med school, preparing for residency exams, and with a packed schedule, they barely saw each other. But Aisha believed in their love. She planned to tell him over the weekend, booking a table at a small Italian restaurant, the place of their first date. She bought a children's book about family and carefully wrapped it, intending to gift it as a joyful surprise. But Ethan called first. Aisha was grading papers in her apartment, occasionally glancing at her phone, hoping he'd come home early from his hospital shift. When his name flashed on the screen, she smiled and picked up. "Ethan, are you okay? You sound tired." But his voice wasn't the same. Cold, distant, like a stranger. "Aisha, we need to talk." She sat down, a wave of unease washing over her. "What's wrong, babe? You're scaring me." Ethan let out a dry, bitter laugh, an unfamiliar sound. "Pregnant, Aisha? How long have you been planning to trap me with this baby?" The words hit her like a punch to the chest. Aisha dropped the phone, her hand instinctively moving to her belly, where the tiny life grew. She picked it up, voice trembling. "What did you say?" "My mother told me everything," Ethan replied, voice icy. "She has photos and documents. I know you looked into my family's wealth and planned this from the start to use me." Aisha froze. Photos? Documents? She hadn't even told him about the pregnancy yet, and hadn't once thought about his family's money. "Ethan, what are you talking about? I was going to tell you this weekend. I didn't trap you. I love you." "Don't pretend," he snapped. "Pregnancy test results, doctor appointments. My mother has it all. She hired a private investigator because she questioned your motives, and they uncovered everything. Photos of you meeting someone at a cafe, your bank records, your searches about the Caldwell estate. Do you think I'm too stupid to see through this?" Aisha felt her world tilt. Someone had followed her, knew about the pregnancy before she could share it, and twisted it into a narrative of manipulation. "Ethan, please, listen to me," she sobbed. "I didn't meet with any detective. I wasn't researching anything. I love you. I just wanted us to be a family." But his tone only grew colder. "Love me? Or love my money? My mom has photos of you receiving $5,000 after that cafe meeting. And you still have the nerve to lie?" Aisha searched her memory. 3 weeks ago, she had met with a student loan advisor at a cafe to discuss repayment options. And yes, she had received a $5,000 tax refund shortly after. But how could anyone have known and twisted that into evidence? "That was a loan advisor. The money was from my tax refund," she cried, tears streaming down. "Someone is lying to you, Ethan. Your mother is lying." But Ethan wasn't listening. "My mother doesn't lie. I was going to propose to you, Aisha. I picked out a ring. I dreamed of our future. But you—" His voice cracked. "You only saw me as a ticket out of poverty, right?" His words cut deeper than any blade. "Propose?" He had planned to propose to her. Aisha wept, trying to explain about the dinner, the book, and her joy upon learning about the pregnancy. But Ethan interrupted. "Enough. We're done. Don't call. Please don't come near me. I want nothing to do with you." The line went dead. Aisha sat frozen, still clutching her belly. She called back dozens of times, but Ethan had blocked her. He moved out and vanished from her life. 9 months later, she gave birth to Maya and Zoe alone in a public hospital, with no one holding her hand except for a kind nurse. She named the girls after flowers, Maya for orchid, Zoe for rose, as a reminder that life could still be beautiful. But every time she looked into their gray-blue eyes, she saw Ethan, and her heart ached. Now, sitting in the apartment, Aisha opened her wallet and counted the few coins left after daycare payments. She glanced at the drawing Maya and Zoe had stuck to the fridge, a picture of a 3-person family missing a father. The job at Haven was a chance to pay off debt, buy new clothes for her daughters, and maybe, one day, move to a better place. But working with Ethan meant confronting the past every day. She feared he'd discover the truth about Maya and Zoe, would hurt her again, and feared, most of all, that her heart still trembled when she saw him today. Aisha stood up and tucked the bills into a drawer. She walked into the girls' room, straightened Maya's blanket, and brushed Zoe's hair from her face. "Mommy will do everything for you both," she whispered. But when she returned to the living room, she sat down and buried her face in her hands. Would she have the strength to face Ethan, the secret she carried, and the judgment she knew would come from his family? All she knew was this: for Maya and Zoe, she had to try, even if her heart shattered all over again. Aisha Thompson stepped out of the elevator onto the second floor of Haven Medical Center, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee. Her first day on the job began with a lengthy HR orientation, including forms, protocols, and warm welcomes from new colleagues. But her mind kept circling back to last week's interview when Ethan Caldwell's gray-blue eyes met hers, stirring up pain and a feeling she dared not name. Now, she was a patient care coordinator at the hospital he ran, and each step down these gleaming hallways felt like walking through an emotional minefield. Aisha's office was small but bright, with a window overlooking the hospital's healing garden, where clusters of chrysanthemums bloomed under the early autumn sun. She sat at her desk, turned on the computer, and began familiarizing herself with the patient management system. The names, numbers, and medical histories allowed her to forget about Ethan, if only for a moment. Her supervisor, Keisha Williams, a veteran black nurse with a radiant smile, helped her settle in quickly. "You'll do just fine, Aisha," Keisha said, as she walked her through the procedures. "This hospital needs people like you who genuinely listen to the patients." Keisha was a beacon of light on Aisha's chaotic first day. They quickly found kinship, not only as black women in a predominantly white institution, but also as mothers who understood each other's burdens. "I've got an 8-year-old boy, Keisha, who shared during their lunch break. Being a single mom isn't easy, but raising twin girls? That's a superpower." Aisha smiled and spoke about Maya and Zoe, how Maya loved to draw, and Zoe adored books. But she didn't mention Ethan. She couldn't bring herself to reveal that the father of her children was somewhere in this very building. Encounters with Ethan were unavoidable. One morning, while Aisha was reviewing a patient file in the hallway, she heard a familiar set of footsteps. Ethan appeared, wearing a white coat and holding a folder. "Ms. Thompson, how's your first day going?" he asked, voice dry. Aisha gripped the file tighter and responded evenly. "Very well, Mr. Caldwell. The system is user-friendly, and Ms. Williams has been beneficial." Ethan nodded, but his gaze lingered too long as he wanted to say more. Eventually he said, "Good. If you need anything, reach out to my assistant." Then he walked away, leaving Aisha with a pounding heart. Moments like that repeated throughout the week. Ethan appeared at meetings on patient care policy, his voice full of authority as he outlined Haven's vision. Aisha couldn't help but admire him. He was still the Ethan she once loved, the man who dreamed of helping the underprivileged. But each polite nod, each fleeting glance, reminded her of the chasm between them. She wondered if he ever thought about the days they shared, or if he just saw her now as another employee, a name on a resume. On Thursday evening, Aisha stayed late to finish her report. The office was quiet, with only the low hum of the air conditioner filling the space. She stood to get water from the nearby break room when Ethan's low voice drifted from inside, halting her in her tracks. He was speaking to a colleague, his tone heavy with regret. "I keep thinking, Raj, I believed my mother 6 years ago when she said Aisha had tricked me. But now, looking at her, I'm not sure anymore. What if it was all a lie?" Aisha froze, her hand tightening around the cup. Ethan's colleague, Dr. Raj Patel, replied, "You are young and easy to influence, but if you have doubts, why not find out the truth?" Aisha stepped back, heart racing. Ethan started to question what his mother had told him. She wanted to burst in, to scream that she had never lied, that she had carried his child alone, that she had loved him more than anything. But instead, she silently returned to her office and closed the door. The truth was a double-edged sword. If Ethan found out about Maya and Zoe, how would he react? Would he want to be their father, or accuse her of deception again? She couldn't take that risk, not when her daughters were her whole world. The next morning, while reviewing the patient list, Aisha saw a name that made her blood run cold: Eleanor Caldwell. Ethan's mother, admitted to the cardiology unit for chest pains, is now under continuous monitoring. As the coordinator, Aisha would have to work with the patient's family, including Eleanor, the woman who had shattered her life 6 years ago. She remembered their only meeting at a med school charity event. Eleanor, with her silver hair in a tight chignon and a frosty smile, had looked at her like she didn't belong. "Miss Thompson, education major? How commendable," she had said, dripping with condescension. Aisha was arranging Eleanor's file when Ethan appeared at her office door, his coat slightly wrinkled as if from a long shift. "Aisha, I need to speak with you about a patient," he said, his tone serious. She nodded, though her heart pounded. "Which patient?" "My mother." "Eleanor Caldwell," he answered, stepping inside and closing the door. The small space suddenly felt suffocating. "She's under cardiac monitoring. I wanted to give you a heads up. She's difficult. She's got extreme opinions, especially about—" He trailed off, searching for words. "People like me?" Aisha asked, her voice calm but sharp. Ethan froze, pain flickering in his eyes. "That's not what I meant. She judges people, by status, background, and sometimes even by skin color. I don't want her to make you uncomfortable." His words cut deep. Aisha remembered his accusation 6 years ago, that she had researched his family's wealth and wanted to climb. Now she understood. Those words hadn't only come from him, but from Eleanor's deep-seated prejudice. "I can handle difficult people, Mr. Caldwell," Aisha said, meeting his gaze. "It's my job." Ethan nodded, but didn't leave immediately. He stood there, hands in his coat pockets, as if wanting to say more. "Aisha, if she says anything inappropriate, please tell me. She doesn't speak for Haven or me." His words were sincere, but Aisha only nodded and returned to her screen. She couldn't trust him. Not yet. Not while the past still ached so vividly. As Ethan left, Aisha leaned back in her chair and deeply breathed. Working at Haven was a chance to build a better future for Maya and Zoe. But it also meant confronting Ethan and Eleanor, two people who had altered her life forever. She looked out at the healing garden, where an elderly patient held a chrysanthemum on a bench. Aisha wondered, could her heart ever truly heal? Or would it forever carry the scar of what happened 6 years ago? All she knew was this: for her daughters, she had to stay strong. But with each passing day, the secret of Maya and Zoe seemed to rise closer to the surface, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep it hidden. Aisha Thompson sat at her desk at Haven Medical Center, the glow from her computer screen casting a tired light across her face. It was her second week on the job, and she was gradually adjusting to the fast-paced rhythm, reviewing patient files, coordinating appointments, and acting as a bridge between doctors and families. However, each day, she still had to suppress the emotional storm inside her whenever she crossed paths with Ethan Caldwell in the hallway or during meetings. His polite nods and fleeting glances reminded her of the secret she was hiding. Maya and Zoe, her 5-year-old twin daughters, were his children. Today, Thursday, Aisha reviewed a pediatric patient's file when her phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Maya and Zoe's elementary school. Her brow furrowed, and she picked up. Ms. Thompson? This is Principal Carter. A rushed voice came through. There's been an accident. A car ran a red light outside the school at dismissal. Maya and Zoe have been brought to Haven. They're stable, but you should come immediately. Aisha felt her world tilt. The phone slipped from her hand and fell onto the desk. Her children, the 2 girls who were her entire life. Without another thought, she bolted out of her office, leaving behind files, her computer, everything. The hospital corridors blurred as Aisha sprinted toward the emergency wing. Her heart pounded, each breath like a blade. She pushed through the intake doors, her voice trembling as she spoke to the triage nurse. Maya and Zoe Thompson. My daughters. Where are they? The nurse, recognizing the panic in her eyes, responded gently. Bay 3, Ms. Thompson. Dr. Patterson is with them. Aisha rushed on, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, not caring about the stares from colleagues. When she pulled back the curtain at Bay 3, the sight before her nearly brought her to her knees. Maya and Zoe lay on 2 hospital beds, their small faces pale but conscious. Maya, her left arm hastily bandaged, tried to smile when she saw her. Looking more fragile, Zoe whimpered softly, a bruise forming on her forehead. Mommy! Maya called, her voice small but brave. Aisha rushed to them, cradling both girls in her arms, careful not to hurt them. I'm here, babies. I'm right here. You're going to be okay, she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. Dr. Patterson, a middle-aged man with a reassuring tone, looked up from Zoe's chart. Ms. Thompson, I'm Dr. Patterson. The girls are stable, but we need to talk about their condition. Aisha nodded, one hand stroking Maya's hair, the other gripping Zoe's hand tightly. Maya has a fractured wrist and some chest bruising. We'll need x-rays to check for internal injuries. Zoe has a dislocated shoulder and signs of a mild concussion. She briefly lost consciousness at the scene. Aisha felt like her chest was being crushed. Her daughters, hurt, in pain, all because she wasn't there to protect them. The driver? Aisha asked, her voice catching. Ran a red light and fled the scene, Dr. Patterson replied. The police are investigating. Right now, we're focused on the girls. Aisha nodded, trying to absorb the information, but fear and guilt surged inside her. She should have picked them up instead of letting them walk with friends. She should have been there. Do whatever they need. Please, help them, she said, nearly begging. At that moment, familiar footsteps echoed behind her. Dr. Patterson, what's the situation? Ethan's deep voice came from the entrance, filled with urgency. Aisha turned and saw him standing at the threshold, his face pale. A lab coat replaced his usual suit, but his eyes, no longer those of a CEO, were raw with concern, almost pain. Aisha froze. Why was he here? Then she remembered. This was his hospital. An incident involving children would certainly draw his attention. Ethan stepped inside, his gaze locking on Maya and Zoe. In that instant, Aisha saw his entire expression shift. His gray-blue eyes widened. His lips pressed tightly together, as if he had seen a ghost. He recognized them. She knew he did. The unmistakable features, the same gray-blue eyes, Maya's dimples, Zoe's shy smile, were all marks of him. Are they... Ethan's voice faltered as he looked at Aisha, pleading for an explanation. Ms. Thompson works here, Dr. Patterson said, unaware of the tension. These are her daughters. They were hit outside their school. Ethan moved closer, his hands trembling slightly. He knelt beside Maya's bed, voice gentle yet shaking. Hello, sweetheart. I'm Dr. Ethan. What's your name? Maya, despite the pain, looked at him with curious eyes. I'm Maya. That's Zoe. She's my sister. She saved me when the car came. Zoe, weak, whispered. My head hurts, doctor. Ethan inhaled deeply, eyes flicking to Zoe, then back to Aisha. Twins, he murmured, as if the word carried an entire world. How old are they? 5, Maya answered softly. Our birthday is Valentine's Day, February 14th. Aisha saw Ethan freeze. She knew he was calculating the dates and the timeline. Valentine's Day. 9 months after the night she had planned to tell him about the pregnancy, before everything fell apart because of Eleanor's lies. Aisha, Ethan said, standing up, his eyes filled with questions. Hope, fear, hurt. She couldn't respond. Not here. Not while their daughters lay in hospital beds. Ethan told Dr. Patterson they needed scans and evaluations immediately, his voice regaining authority, though his eyes never left Aisha. Call Dr. Hendress for Maya's wrist and Dr. Toe for Zoe. I want the best team. Dr. Patterson nodded and went off to arrange it. Aisha sat between those two beds, holding Maya and Zoe's hands, fighting back tears. Ethan stood a few feet away, but their distance felt like a chasm. They're mine, aren't they? He asked, his voice so low she barely heard it. Aisha met his eyes, seeing the pain and yearning within them. She couldn't lie anymore, couldn't hide it. Yes, she whispered, tears falling again. They're your daughters. Ethan inhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the chair to steady himself. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked, laced with both anger and anguish. Aisha shook her head, trying to remain composed in front of the girls. I tried, Ethan. That night, you called and accused me. I would tell you, but you didn't listen. You believed your mother, and you left. Maya, always the more sensitive, looked between her mother and Ethan. Mommy, who is he? She asked, voice trembling. Aisha forced a gentle smile, brushing Maya's hair back. He's a doctor, sweetheart. He's going to help you and Zoe get better. But her eyes met Ethan's, and she knew the conversation wasn't over. Ethan knelt by Zoe's side, gently checking the bruise on her forehead with the tenderness of a man discovering fatherhood for the first time. I'll stay here, Zoe, he said. I promise. Though in pain, Zoe nodded, as if she sensed safety in him. When the nurses came to take the girls for x-rays, Aisha stood and faced Ethan. I didn't want it to happen this way, she said, voice breaking. I didn't want them to find out like this. Ethan looked at her, his gaze conflicted. Aisha, I was wrong, but I'm here now. I want to be their father. She shook her head, not in rejection, but because she didn't know where to begin. Her children were hurt, the secret was out, and her heart was torn between old pain and fragile hope that Ethan might truly change. Keisha appeared at the doorway, placing a hand on Aisha's shoulder. I heard about the girls. Are you okay? Aisha shook her head, tears returning. Keisha pulled her into a hug, whispering, You're stronger than you think, Aisha. You'll get through this. Ethan watched, his expression softening, but he said nothing. He turned to coordinate with the medical team instead. Aisha knew, from this moment forward, there was no turning back. The truth was out, and now she had to face it. For Maya, for Zoe, and for herself. Aisha Thompson sat between the two hospital beds in the recovery room at Haven Medical Center, gripping Maya and Zoe's hands tightly. The soft overhead light cast a gentle glow on her daughter's small faces, now calm after their examinations. Maya, her left wrist in a cast, had fallen asleep, lips slightly pursed. Zoe, her shoulder stabilized, a bandage on her forehead, remained awake, and her gray-blue eyes fixed on her mother with quiet trust. Aisha stroked Zoe's hair, holding back tears. Her daughters had made it through the worst. Maya had a fractured wrist and some bruising. Zoe had a mild concussion, but didn't need surgery. Still, Aisha's heart felt heavy, not just from the accident, but from the truth that had just exploded into the open. Ethan Caldwell now knew Maya and Zoe were his daughters. Ethan stood in the corner of the room, his white coat wrinkled, eyes never leaving the girls. He had stayed for the past 4 hours, coordinating with doctors and ensuring Maya and Zoe received the best care. Aisha felt his devotion, but it also terrified her. What did he want? To be a father? Or was this just a momentary surge of guilt? She remembered his words from 6 years ago, cold through the phone. "You're trying to trap me, Aisha." Had he changed, or was she risking her and children's hearts again? A gentle knock startled Aisha. Keisha Williams, her colleague and friend, entered carrying a glass of orange juice. "For you, Aisha." "You need something to drink," Keisha said warmly. Aisha gave a faint smile and took the glass. "Thank you, Keisha. You didn't have to stay this late." Keisha shook her head and sat beside her. Sisters look out for each other. "How are the girls?" Aisha gave a brief update, her voice catching when she spoke of the accident. Keisha squeezed her hand and whispered, "You're powerful. Those girls are lucky to have you." Ethan watched the exchange, his gaze softening. He stepped out to speak with a nurse, then returned holding his phone. "Aisha, I just called a private investigator," he said, voice low but firm. "I need to know the truth about what happened 6 years ago." Aisha froze, the orange juice trembling in her hand. "A private investigator?" "Ethan, what are you trying to investigate?" He looked straight at her, eyes filled with determination. "What my mother told me. Photos, documents, money. I don't believe it anymore. I need evidence." Aisha felt a wave of conflicting emotions. Relief that he was questioning Eleanor, but fear of reopening old wounds. "Ethan, I told you already. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't meet with a detective, take money, or research your family." Her voice trembled, but was sharp with truth. Ethan nodded, stepping closer. "I know, Aisha. Or at least, I do. I was wrong to believe my mother instead of you. I need to prove that. To you and to—" He looked at Maya and Zoe, his voice faltering. "To our children." Zoe, though weak, lifted her head. "Mommy, what's Dr. Ethan saying about us?" Aisha smiled gently, brushing her cheek. "He's just worried about you and Maya, sweetheart. Try to sleep now." Zoe nodded and closed her eyes. Aisha turned to Ethan and whispered, "Not here. The girls don't need to hear this." He nodded, but his eyes locked on hers, silently speaking volumes. The door suddenly opened, and a figure entered. Eleanor Caldwell, silver hair pinned up, dressed in a patient gown that did little to hide her refined presence. Aisha stiffened, gripping the chair's armrest. Eleanor, the woman who had destroyed her life, was now standing in this room, staring at Maya and Zoe with stunned eyes. Ethan, Eleanor said, voice calm but slightly trembling. You didn't tell me I had grandchildren. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between his mother and the hospital beds. His voice was ice. You have no right to be here. Go back to your room. But Eleanor didn't move. Her eyes moved from Maya to Zoe, recognition dawning as she took in the unmistakable features. The same gray-blue eyes, Maya's dimple, Zoe's shy smile. They're your children, she whispered, as if the truth had just struck her like a blow. Aisha stood, her voice sharp. You know why they don't have a father, Mrs. Caldwell. You know what you did 6 years ago. Eleanor turned to Aisha, a flicker of guilt flashing across her face before it was replaced with defensiveness. Ms. Thompson, Don't, Aisha cut her off, stepping forward, eyes blazing. You hired someone to pose as a private investigator, took photos of me meeting with a student loan counselor, and forged documents to make Ethan believe I was a gold digger. You destroyed us because I was black. After all, I wasn't from your world. And now you stand here, looking at my children? Her voice shook, but it radiated power. Keisha rose, placing a hand on her shoulder like a shield. Eleanor took a deep breath, her face pale. I was wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I hired an actor and created fake evidence. I thought you weren't good enough for Ethan, that you'd drag him down. I was afraid of losing my son, afraid he'd give up his future for someone. She hesitated, but Aisha didn't let her escape. For someone black? Someone poor? Say it, Mrs. Caldwell. Eleanor lowered her head. For the first time, she looked small, frail. Both, she whispered. I was wrong, Miss Thompson. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I am sorry. Ethan stared at his mother, his eyes full of rage and heartbreak. You destroyed my family, he said, voice low and sharp. I lost 6 years with my daughters because of your lies. Do you think an apology is enough? Eleanor looked up, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know they existed, Ethan. If I had, what would you have done? Aisha interrupted. Kept lying? Tried to take them from me? I don't trust you, Mrs. Caldwell. If you want redemption, prove it through action, not words. Eleanor nodded, wiping her tears. I'll try, she said, then turned and left, her silhouette vanishing through the doorway. Aisha sank back into her chair, drained. Keisha hugged her and whispered, You are powerful, Aisha. Ethan stepped closer, kneeling beside Zoe's bed, his eyes filled with love and pain as he looked at the girls. Aisha, I want to be their father, he said, voice hoarse. I don't deserve it, but I want to make it right. Please, give me a chance. Aisha looked at him, her heart torn. She saw sincerity in his eyes, but also remembered the cruel words from the past. Ethan, these girls are everything to me. I can't let them be hurt. If you're serious, prove it. Not out of guilt, but because you genuinely want this. Ethan nodded, eyes resolute. I will, Aisha. I promise. As the girls slept peacefully, Aisha looked at Ethan, knowing the door to the past had been flung wide open. The truth was out, and now they had to face it, not just for themselves, but for Maya and Zoe. But deep in her heart, she wondered, could she trust Ethan again? Or would the scars of 6 years ago forever stand between them? The afternoon sunlight streamed through the window of Aisha Thompson's small apartment, illuminating a hand-drawn picture of Maya and Zoe taped to the refrigerator. A family of 3, with the father's figure faint and blurred. Aisha sat at the kitchen table, holding an overdue electricity bill, her heart heavy. A week had passed since Maya and Zoe were discharged after the accident. Maya's wrist was healing, her cast adorned with Zoe's colorful pencil drawings. Though still nursing a sore shoulder, Zoe was beginning to smile more often, but her gray-blue eyes frequently drifted off, as if silently asking a question. Aisha knew that question concerned Ethan Caldwell, the man who had recently entered their lives as their father. Ethan had kept his promise. He picked up Maya and Zoe twice weekly after school, taking them to the park or library. Aisha still remembered that first afternoon he came, awkwardly standing outside the apartment door in a simple blue shirt instead of a doctor's coat. "Hello, Dr. Ethan," Maya exclaimed, pulling him inside. Zoe, more shy, held Aisha's hand but smiled when Ethan gave her a picture book about animals. "We love elephants," Zoe said softly. Ethan knelt and pointed at an elephant illustration. "Dad, I like elephants too," he corrected himself, his eyes briefly confused. After the second visit, the girls began calling him Dad Ethan when he read them bedtime stories in a warm, deep voice about a bear searching for a home. Maya, curious like any 5-year-old, asked, "Dad Ethan, why don't you live with us like other dads?" Aisha, standing in the doorway, felt her heart tighten. Ethan looked at her as if asking permission, then gently replied, "I used to be far away, but now I'm here and not going anywhere." Zoe held his hand and whispered, "Please don't leave like Sarah's dad, okay?" The words made Aisha turn away, tears threatening to spill. She wanted to believe Ethan, but the memory of his accusations 6 years ago felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Keisha Williams, Aisha's close friend at Haven, was her rock during these turbulent days. One evening, when Aisha invited Keisha over for dinner, they sat on the sofa, sharing cookies while the girls played with blocks. "You let him into the girls' lives so fast, Aisha," Keisha said, half teasing, half worried. "Do you trust him after everything?" Aisha sighed, glancing at the pile of bills on the table. "I don't know, Keisha. He's good with Maya and Zoe, but every time I see him, I hear his voice on the phone calling me a gold digger. I'm afraid the girls will love him, and he'll leave again." Keisha took her hand. "You're stronger than you think. You've raised 2 amazing girls alone despite all the prejudice. If Ethan's serious, he'll have to prove it. If not, you're strong enough to protect your daughters." Aisha nodded, her eyes falling on the drawing of Maya and Zoe. The latest family portrait now included Ethan, but the colored pencil lines were shaky, as if even the drawing feared he might disappear. Financial pressure only heightened Aisha's stress. She opened her wallet and counted $3 and some change, not enough to buy milk for the coming week. The job at Haven paid better than teaching, but the medical bills from the accident, though mostly covered by insurance, still left a small debt. She worked overtime, staying late to finish reports and hoping for extra hours. But every time she left the office, she felt Ethan's gaze following her, as if he wanted to say something. Once, he stopped her in the hallway, voice low. "Aisha, if you need financial help for the girls, tell me." She shook her head, wounded pride rising. "I don't need charity, Ethan. I've raised them alone for 5 years." He looked at her, eyes full of pain. "That's not charity. They're my children, Aisha. I want to help." But she turned away, not wanting him to see her tears. She couldn't let Ethan think she needed him for money, the accusation Eleanor had made. Eleanor. The name still sent chills down Aisha's spine. Eleanor hadn't appeared since their confrontation in the hospital, but Aisha felt her shadow looming like a hidden threat. She feared Eleanor would try to interfere, especially now that she knew Maya and Zoe were her grandchildren. One afternoon, when Aisha came to pick up the girls from school, Maya ran up and hugged her. "Mom and Dad Ethan told us about the brightest star in the sky. He said we're his stars too." Zoe, tugging her mother's hand, whispered, "But what if Dad goes away, Mom, like in the bear story?" Aisha knelt and hugged them both tightly. I don't know, my loves, but I promise I'll always be here. The words hurt her because she knew her daughters longed for a father, and Ethan seemed to be trying to be that man. That night, Keisha called, voice worried. Aisha, I heard from a nurse that Eleanor Caldwell was discharged today. She asked about you and the girls. It looks like she wants to see Ethan. Aisha felt a chill. Eleanor had admitted her mistakes. But was that apology genuine or just another act? She looked at the drawing on the fridge, where Ethan was now part of the girls' family picture. She wanted to trust him, to believe he wouldn't let his mother interfere. But the past had taught her that trust was fragile. When the doorbell rang, Aisha jumped. Ethan stood there, wearing a coat and holding a small bag of toys. I brought some books for Maya and Zoe, he said, sincerity in his eyes. And I want to talk, Aisha, about us, about the girls. She hesitated, then opened the door. Okay, Ethan, but if you want to be their father, you must understand that the girls don't just need a dad, they need the truth. And I need to know you won't leave them again. Ethan nodded, stepping inside, his eyes shining with determination. Aisha knew the journey to build their family was only beginning, and it wouldn't be easy, especially with Eleanor's shadow still lurking somewhere. The late afternoon sunlight faded through the window of Aisha Thompson's small apartment, casting a soft glow on the worn wooden floor, where Maya and Zoe played with building blocks. Aisha sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a stack of bills, electricity, water, and a notice of rent increase. She counted the few coins left in her wallet, not enough to buy food for the week. Her job at Haven Medical Center helped cover expenses, but the medical debt from the girl's accident, though small, weighed like a stone on her shoulders. She watched Maya and Zoe laughing carefree and told herself she had to stay strong. Yet the shadow of Eleanor Caldwell, who had admitted guilt in the hospital room last week, still haunted her like an invisible threat. Ethan Caldwell had increasingly become indispensable to Maya and Zoe's lives. He picked them up every Wednesday and weekend, taking them out for ice cream or cartoons. Aisha couldn't deny the change in him. Ethan from 6 years ago, who had accused her of being a gold digger, now knelt to tie Zoe's shoelaces with the tenderness of a father. Last night, he sat on the living room floor, helping Maya draw an elephant while Zoe read aloud a passage from a picture book. Dad, Ethan, is my elephant pretty? Maya asked, her eyes shining bright. Ethan smiled, dimples showing clearly, just like Maya's, the prettiest princess. But those moments brought Aisha both joy and worry. Her daughters loved Ethan, but they were also vulnerable. Once, after Ethan left, Zoe hugged her and whispered, Mom, if Dad Ethan goes away like Sarah's dad, I'll be despondent. Aisha held her close and promised, Mommy won't let that happen. But she wasn't sure she could keep that promise. Not while Eleanor remained an unknown variable. Eleanor's apology in the hospital, admitting to fabricating evidence to separate her and Ethan because of Aisha's race and background, seemed sincere. But Aisha didn't believe it. Someone like Eleanor didn't change easily. On Friday, when Aisha returned from Haven, she found a package at the door. Inside were 2 expensive toys, a puzzle set of elephants for Maya, and a picture book about animals for Zoe, along with a handwritten card. For my 2 beautiful granddaughters, I hope to meet you soon. Eleanor Caldwell. Aisha felt blood rush to her face. She couldn't believe the woman dared send gifts to her children without her consent. Furious, she called Ethan, voice shaking. Ethan, your mother sent toys to Maya and Zoe with a note saying she wants to see them. What is she planning? Ethan arrived at the apartment within 20 minutes, still wearing his lab coat and face tense. Aisha, I didn't know she would do this, he said, examining the card. I'll call her now. He dialed, his voice sharp as Eleanor answered. "Mother, what are you doing? You cannot contact my children without first asking Aisha or me." Aisha overheard Eleanor's voice on speaker. "Ethan, I only want to make amends. They are my blood. I want them to have good things, toys, books, maybe even a trip." "No, Mother," Ethan interrupted, eyes blazing. "You destroyed our family once. You don't get to decide things about the children on your own. If you want to meet Maya and Zoe, talk to Aisha first." Eleanor was silent for a moment, then replied, "I understand. I will contact her." Ethan hung up and turned to Aisha. "I'm sorry. I didn't think she'd do this." Aisha shook her head, clutching the card. "Ethan, I don't trust her. She apologized. But now she's sending gifts as if trying to buy our children. I don't want them near her." Ethan nodded with determination in his eyes. "I won't let her interfere. They're ours, Aisha. I will protect them." But Aisha saw a flicker of doubt in his gaze, as if he was still torn between loyalty to his mother and the new love he'd found in their family. That evening, Keisha visited, bringing a box of homemade cookies. She sat with Aisha on the sofa, listening to the story about Eleanor. "Be careful, Aisha," Keisha said seriously. "Someone like Mrs. Caldwell doesn't give up easily. She has money and power and might believe those girls belong to her family more than you." Aisha nodded, glancing at the pile of bills on the table. "Keisha, I want to give my daughters a good life. But look, I don't even have enough for milk next week. How can I compete with her?" Keisha squeezed her hand. "You don't have to compete. You're their mother, Aisha. Your love is stronger than money. And Ethan? He's trying. I see how he looks at those girls. He truly loves them." Aisha smiled weakly, but her heart still felt heavy. She remembered when Zoe asked, "Mom, does Grandma hate us?" After seeing Aisha put Eleanor's gift box away. Aisha hugged her daughter and said, "No, sweetheart, she doesn't understand you yet." But she wasn't sure she believed her own words. The next morning, as Aisha took Maya and Zoe to school, Maya held her hand and asked, "Mom and Dad, Ethan said Grandma wants to meet us. Who is Grandma?" Aisha knelt, looking into her daughter's gray-blue eyes like Ethan's. "Grandma is Dad Ethan's mother, honey. But I want you only to meet people who genuinely love you, okay?" Zoe nodded, but her eyes showed curiosity. "Does Grandma tell stories like Dad Ethan?" Aisha smiled awkwardly, unsure how to answer. Back at Haven, Aisha received an email from her landlord. Rent would increase by $200 next month. She sat at her desk, hands trembling as she recalculated her budget. She could work overtime, which meant less time with Maya and Zoe. Looking out the window, she saw Ethan talking with a patient in the healing garden, his smile warm like days gone by. She wanted to believe he would protect her children, but Eleanor's shadow made her afraid. Eleanor had destroyed them once, and Aisha knew that with money and power, she might try again. She only hoped Ethan was strong enough to stand by her, and that she was strong enough to protect her small family. Aisha Thompson stood in her small apartment, the dim light from a desk lamp illuminating the legal documents freshly handed to her. Her hands trembled as she read the bold heading, "Custody Lawsuit, Eleanor Caldwell versus Aisha Thompson." Her heart seemed to stop. Eleanor, Ethan Caldwell's mother, was suing for custody of Maya and Zoe, Aisha's 5-year-old twin daughters, accusing Aisha of being an unfit mother due to financial instability, poor living conditions, and a history of deceit about the girl's father's identity. Aisha collapsed into a chair, the papers slipping to the floor. This wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a declaration of war. Only a week ago, Eleanor had sent gifts to Maya and Zoe with a note expressing her wish to meet them. Aisha had thought it was an attempt to buy their affection, but she hadn't imagined the lengths Eleanor would go to. She looked out the window at the flickering streetlights and thought of her children sleeping soundly in their room. Maya, with her wrists still in a cast, and Zoe, shyly smiling after the accident, didn't deserve this. Yet Eleanor, with her money and power, seemed determined to take them away. Aisha called Ethan, her voice trembling. "Ethan, your mother is suing me. She wants custody of Maya and Zoe." There was stunned silence on the other end before Ethan's angry voice came. "What? That can't be. After what she said at the hospital?" Aisha gripped the phone. "She claims I'm unfit and that you should have custody of her as the primary caretaker. Ethan, she's using you to get to the girls." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Aisha, I won't let this happen. I'm coming over." While waiting for Ethan, Aisha buried her face in her hands to stop the tears. She remembered the days working triple shifts to pay rent, the sleepless nights when Zoe had a high fever, the times Maya asked, "Mom, why don't we have a big house like Emma's?" She sacrificed everything to give her children a stable, modest life. Now Eleanor, the woman who once destroyed her and Ethan's love because of racial and class prejudice, wanted to kill her family again. Ethan arrived within 30 minutes, hurriedly dressed in a coat, his face tense. He reviewed the documents, eyes darkening. "She's lost her mind," he said quietly but sharply. "Aisha, I called Olivia Grant, the city's best family lawyer. She'll represent you, and I'll cover all costs." Aisha shook her head, pride rising. "Ethan, I don't want you to pay. I don't want her to think I'm relying on you." Ethan looked at her, determined. "This isn't about us. It's about Maya and Zoe. My mother caused this, and I'm going to fix it." Aisha nodded, though her heart felt heavy. She called Keisha Williams, her close friend at Haven, to share the news. Keisha arrived promptly, bringing a box of herbal tea. "Aisha, she can't win," Keisha said, holding her hand. "You're a fantastic mother. The court will see that." But Aisha shook her head, voice thick. "Keisha has money, a top lawyer, and power. I only have this apartment, a few coins, and a pile of bills. If the court values money over love, I'll lose my girls." The trial took place 2 weeks later in a small courtroom with stiff wooden benches. Aisha sat at the defendant's table, wearing a business dress borrowed from Keisha, palms sweaty. Ethan sat beside her, his eyes full of resolve. Olivia Grant, their sharp black attorney with a commanding voice, led their case. Opposite them sat Eleanor, dressed in an expensive navy suit, flanked by Victoria Sterling, a notorious, ruthless family lawyer. Sterling attacked immediately. "Ms. Thompson, you live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a low-income area, correct?" Aisha nodded calmly. "Yes, but it's a safe neighborhood with good schools." Sterling smiled coldly. "Safe? Police reports show 7 thefts in that area in the last year, and your income barely exceeds the poverty line for a family of 3. What can you offer the Caldwell girls? Private schools, travel, and cultural opportunities." Aisha clenched her fists, eyes blazing. "I give them love, stability, and values. Money can't buy those." But Sterling continued, pulling out Aisha's student loans, her part-time work when the girls were young, and the fact she hid the girls' father's identity. "You concealed the truth about their father, didn't you? That's deception." Olivia objected, but the question struck Aisha like a blow. When Olivia's turn came, she called witnesses. Keisha, who described Aisha's dedication to her daughters, Maya and Zoe's teacher, who spoke of their happiness and good manners, and Ethan himself. Standing at the witness stand, Ethan's voice was clear. "Aisha is a wonderful mother. She raised Maya and Zoe to be thoughtful and kind. Many wouldn't survive despite hardships. I oppose this lawsuit. The girls belong with their mother. Sterling grilled Ethan mercilessly. Dr. Caldwell, your mother pays for your medical school, home, and career, correct? Opposing her could cost you your inheritance. Ethan paused, then replied firmly, I'm willing to lose everything for my children's happiness. And their happiness is with Aisha, not in a house full of money, but without love. Tears rolled down Aisha's cheeks, surprised at how strongly he stood by her. Eleanor took the stand last, speaking smoothly. I only want the best opportunities for my grandchildren, prestigious schools and world travel. I don't want to separate them from their mother, but I want to ensure their future. Olivia struck back. Mrs. Caldwell, 6 years ago, you fabricated evidence to separate your son from Miss Thompson because she is black and not from your class, correct? Eleanor's face paled, unable to respond. The question was a dagger, exposing her prejudice in court. After a day of testimony, the judge ruled, there is no evidence Miss Thompson is an unfit mother. The custody suit is dismissed. Custody remains with Miss Thompson. Aisha nearly collapsed, embracing Ethan and Olivia. But as she left the courtroom, exhaustion weighed on her. Though defeated, the bills still awaited, and Eleanor's gaze still haunted her. Sensing the tension, Maya and Zoe hugged their mother on the sofa that night. Mom, does Grandma hate us? Zoe asked quietly. Aisha kissed her forehead. No, sweetheart. She doesn't understand us yet. But Mom and Dad, Ethan will always protect you. Ethan sat beside her, holding her hand. Aisha, I promise my mother won't hurt you or the girls again. She looked at him, seeing sincerity, and for the first time, felt hope. But she knew this battle had changed them, and the journey ahead would still be full of challenges. Aisha Thompson stood in her small apartment, the soft glow from a desk lamp casting light on the pile of bills stacked on the kitchen table. The victory in court last week, when she retained custody of Maya and Zoe against Eleanor Caldwell's lawsuit, should have brought relief. But the reality was different. Medical bills from the children's accident, rising rent, and financial pressure kept her awake at night. She looked out the window to see Maya and Zoe playing with blocks on the floor, laughing carefree, and told herself she had to stay strong. But her heart remained heavy, especially when thinking of Ethan Caldwell, the father of her children, who was trying to become part of their lives. Ethan had grown closer to Maya and Zoe. He came every Wednesday evening and on weekends, bringing storybooks or handmade toys. Last night, he sat on the sofa teaching Maya how to draw stars in the sky, while Zoe leaned on him, listening as he told a story about a lost elephant who found its family. Dad, Ethan, we're your family, right? Maya asked, her gray-blue eyes shining brightly. Ethan looked at Aisha, his eyes warm, yet filled with longing. Yes, Princess, you and Mom are my family. Aisha turned away, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe him, but the pain from 6 years ago, when he thought his mother that she was a gold digger, still lingered. On Saturday morning, as Aisha folded clothes, the phone rang with an unknown number. Miss Thompson? This is Patricia Evans from Evans Realty, a professional female voice said. We have a buyer interested in the building you're renting. They're offering $5,000 for you to move out within a month. Aisha froze. Her hands paused mid-fold. $5,000 could pay medical bills and buy new clothes for the girls, but finding affordable housing on short notice was impossible. I need time to think, she replied, voice trembling. The caller agreed to follow up in a few days. Aisha sat down, her mind spinning. Who wanted to buy this old building? That evening, when Ethan brought Maya and Zoe home, the girls excitedly told her, Dad, Ethan took us to see a house, Mom. It has a swing in the backyard. Aisha looked at Ethan, suspicion in her eyes. A house? Where did you take them? Ethan smiled but looked a bit awkward. Just around the neighborhood. I suggest buying a house nearby so the girls have more space with me. Aisha felt blood rush to her face. She waited until the girls went into the playroom, then turned to Ethan, voice low but sharp. Ethan, be honest. Did you buy the building I'm living in? Ethan blinked, then sighed. Okay, I wasn't going to hide it. Yes, I bought it. Aisha clenched her fists, anger mixed with pain. You can't decide my life for me. Do I need you to control everything? Like your mother said, I only want your money. Ethan stepped closer, eyes full of pain. Aisha, that's not it. The building's falling apart. The heating's broken. The pipes are old. And the area isn't safe. I want to fix it and make it a better home for you and the girls. I don't want you worrying about rent or getting kicked out. Aisha shook her head, tears threatening to fall. Ethan, I'm not someone who needs saving. I've raised the girls alone for 6 years. I don't want them to think their mother is dependent. Ethan took her hand, voice hoarse. Aisha, I'm not saving you. I'm trying to protect my family. I want us to be a real family, not just co-parents but a home. I love you, Aisha. I never stopped, even when I was wrong. Aisha froze, her heart torn. She wanted to push him away, but his eyes, so sincere and hopeful, made her hesitate. Ethan, love isn't enough. 6 years ago, love didn't keep us together. I let my mother and my fears destroy us 6 years ago. Ethan said firmly, I'm not that man anymore. I want you to see that. Come with me, please. I want to show you something. Aisha hesitated, but finally nodded. She called Keisha to watch the girls, and Ethan took her to Riverside Park, where they once dated and dreamed of a future. Under the old oak tree, the sunset dyed the river golden. Ethan stopped. Do you remember this place? He asked softly. Aisha nodded, heart aching. Where you told me you loved me for the first time. Ethan smiled, his dimples showing clearly. And where I planned to propose 6 years ago. I sat here, picked out a ring, and dreamed of a life with you. Then, my mother ruined it all. He knelt and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a gold ring with a vintage diamond. This is my grandmother's ring. She told me to give it to the woman who holds my heart. Aisha covered her mouth, tears streaming. Ethan! He took her hand, eyes blazing. Aisha Thompson, I know I hurt you. I don't deserve you, but I want to spend my life making it right. Will you marry me? Let's build the family we always dreamed of. Aisha stood frozen, her heart about to break. She loved him, had always loved him, but fear clung tight. Ethan, we can't go back. Too much has happened. I don't want to go back, Ethan said. I want to move forward with you, Maya and Zoe. We'll go to counseling and do everything right. Just say yes. Aisha looked at him, seeing the man who had once been her whole world, now standing ready to give up everything. His inheritance, his mother, for her and the girls. She whispered, Yes, Ethan. I will marry you. Keisha, a few meters away with Maya and Zoe, cheered. The girls ran over, hugging their mother and Ethan. Mommy's marrying Dad, Ethan? Maya asked, eyes shining. Zoe shyly smiled. We have a family now. Ethan held them all, eyes sparkling with tears. Yes, my loves, a family forever. Aisha looked at her children and Ethan, knowing the road ahead would be difficult, especially with Eleanor's shadow looming. But for the first time, she felt hope that their love could overcome it all. The late afternoon light faded in Aisha Thompson's small apartment, shining on a new drawing by Maya and Zoe taped to the refrigerator. A family of 4. Ethan Caldwell standing beside her and the girls, holding a ring. A month had passed since the proposal under the oak tree at Riverside Park, and Ethan's grandmother's gold ring now glittered on Aisha's finger, a promise of a new future. But Aisha knew love couldn't erase the scars from 6 years ago, when Ethan believed his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, that she was a gold digger. To rebuild trust, Aisha requested marriage counseling, and Ethan agreed immediately, his eyes full of determination. The first counseling session took place in a small office at Haven with Dr. Lena Carter, a black therapist with a warm smile. Aisha sat on a plush chair, hands tightly clasped, while Ethan sat beside her in a simple blue shirt rather than his doctor's coat. "Let's start with the hardest thing," Dr. Carter said gently. "Aisha, what scares you when you think about marrying Ethan?" Aisha took a deep breath, eyes dropping to the ring. 6 years ago, he called me a liar and said I got pregnant to trap him. I loved him more than anyone, but he believed his mother over me. I'm afraid it will happen again. He'll take Day away one day." Ethan lowered his head, fists clenched. "Aisha, I regret those words every day. Daya's young, easily manipulated by my mother, and afraid you were too good for me. But I don't want to make excuses. I want to make it right." Dr. Carter nodded. "Ethan, why do you think you trusted Eleanor so easily?" Ethan hesitated, then answered, "My mother raised me to think love was a transaction that someone like Aisha, a black woman from a different class, couldn't love me for who I am. I let her prejudice infect me." Tears welled up in Aisha's eyes. "Ethan, I'm not just afraid of you. I'm so scared of society. We're an interracial couple, and I know there will be stares and whispers. I'm worried the kids will get hurt." Ethan took her hand, eyes steady. "Aisha, I will stand by you against it all. I promise." Dr. Carter smiled. "You're on the right path. Trust takes time, but you're willing to face the past. That's the first step." Outside counseling, Aisha and Ethan worked on building their parenting relationship. Ethan took Maya and Zoe to the park and taught them to ride bikes and read stories at bedtime. Once, Zoe drew a picture: Ethan and the girls beneath a shining star. "Dad." "Ethan, you're our star, right?" she asked, eyes bright gray blue. Ethan hugged her, voice hoarse. "And you two are my whole sky." Maya, more sensitive, whispered, "Dad, don't go far away like in the story, okay?" Standing in the doorway, Aisha felt her heart warm, but remained worried. The girls loved Ethan, but what if Eleanor interfered again? What would happen to them? Keisha Williams, Aisha's close friend at Haven, was her support. One evening, Keisha brought cookies and sat on the sofa with Aisha, listening to the counseling. "You're courageous, Aisha," Keisha said. "Therapy isn't easy, especially with your past. Is Ethan serious?" Aisha nodded, looking at her ring. "He's trying, Keisha. But I'm still scared. Eleanor hasn't given up. I can feel it." Keisha held her hand. "You're Maya and Zoe's mother. No one can take them from you. And Ethan, he's proving he's different now." Financial pressure still weighed heavily on Aisha. She received notice from her new landlord, Ethan's company, that rent would not increase and that the building would be renovated. Though she appreciated Ethan's good intentions, her pride bristled. She feared being seen as dependent. She worked overtime at Haven, hoping to save money to pay medical debts. Once, checking her wallet, she found only a few coins. "Only enough for milk for 3 days," she whispered, heart aching. She looked at Maya and Zoe coloring and vowed to keep trying. One morning, Aisha received a handwritten letter from Eleanor in elegant but cold script. Ms. Thompson, I want to meet with you to apologize correctly. What I did 6 years ago stemmed from fear of losing Ethan and social pressure. I want to make amends, especially with my grandchildren. Please give me a chance. Aisha clenched the letter, a mix of anger and curiosity. Eleanor had sued her and destroyed her love because of race and class. Was this apology sincere, or was it another scheme? She called Ethan, voice tense. My mother wrote a letter wanting to meet. What do you think? Ethan sighed, worry in his eyes over the phone. Aisha, I don't fully trust her, but if you want to meet, I'll be there. I won't let her hurt you or the girls again. Aisha hesitated, then said, Okay, but I want a mediated meeting. I don't like the girls to meet her until I'm sure. Ethan agreed immediately, and they arranged to meet at Dr. Carter's office. The reconciliation meeting was tense. Eleanor, wearing a cashmere sweater, sat opposite Aisha and Ethan, her eyes showing remorse. Dr. Carter opened. Mrs. Caldwell, what would you like to say to Ms. Thompson? Eleanor took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. Ms. Thompson, I was wrong to fabricate evidence and think you were unworthy because of your race and background. I feared Ethan would lose his future, but I took away his family. I want to make amends. I want to be Maya and Zoe's grandmother. Aisha looked sharply at her. You sued me, Mrs. Caldwell, trying to take my children. Apologies aren't enough. You must prove it by actions, and I won't let you near the girls until I believe you. Eleanor nodded, tears streaming. I understand. I will try. Ethan held Aisha's hand, eyes steady. Mom, you won't be in my life if you hurt Aisha or the girls again. Maya and Zoe cuddled Aisha on the sofa that night, sensing her tension. Mom, is Grandma a bad person? Zoe asked softly. Aisha stroked her hair. No, sweetie. She needs to learn how to love appropriately. Mom and Dad, Ethan will protect you. Maya drew a star for Aisha, saying, Mom, you're the brightest star. Aisha hugged her daughters, tears rolling down her cheeks. She knew the journey to reconcile with Eleanor would be hard, but she felt strong enough to continue with Ethan beside her and her children's love. The soft light from the stained glass windows of the Haven Medical Center chapel illuminated Aisha Thompson's ivory wedding gown, highlighting her naturally curly hair flowing freely. She stood in the small preparation room, her hands gently smoothing the simple yet elegant dress, her heart full of mixed emotions. Today, she would marry Ethan Caldwell, the man who had shattered her heart 6 years ago, but was now the father of Maya and Zoe, and the one she had chosen to build a future with. The gold ring inherited from Ethan's grandmother sparkled on her finger, a reminder of their long journey, from pain and doubt to a love reborn. Maya and Zoe, dressed in soft pink dresses with baby's breaths in their hair, ran around Aisha, laughing radiantly. Mom, you look like a princess, Maya exclaimed, hugging her mother's legs. Zoe, more shy, held a flower basket and asked, Mom, does marrying Dad Ethan mean we have a family forever? Aisha knelt, embracing both girls, tears shimmering in her eyes. Yes, sweethearts, forever. Those words warmed her heart, but she still worried. Eleanor Caldwell, Ethan's mother, was not invited after all she had done, from the lies 6 years ago to the custody battle. Yet Eleanor's shadow still haunted Aisha like an unresolved threat. Keisha Williams, Aisha's close friend and bridesmaid, entered wearing an elegant blue dress. Aisha, you look stunning, Keisha said, hugging her. Are you okay? Today is your big day. Deha gave a weak smile. I'm a little nervous, Keisha. Not just about marrying Ethan, but everything. Eleanor might do something, and I'm still afraid. That I'm not good enough for him. Keisha squeezed her hand firmly. Aisha, you're a fantastic mother and the strongest woman I know. Ethan is lucky to have you. Don't let the past or her steal this day from you. Aisha nodded, feeling lighter with Keisha's support. She held the wedding at Haven, where she and Ethan worked, and reunited after the children's accident. The small chapel, with wooden pews and white chrysanthemum decorations, felt intimate. The guests were only colleagues from Haven, a few teachers from Aisha's old school, and neighbors who had helped her through hard times. No extravagance, no pomp, just love, and those who truly cared. A knock sounded at the door. It's time, Aisha. Olivia Grant, the lawyer who had defended her in the lawsuit and now officiated the ceremony, called out. Aisha took a deep breath, held Maya and Zoe's hands, and stepped into the hallway. The piano played Canon in D, as the girls began scattering flower petals, walking with the concentration of 5-year-olds. Maya paused to wave at a familiar nurse, causing giggles among the guests. Zoe tugged on her sister's hand, whispering, "Keep going, Maya." Aisha smiled, her heart warmed by her children's innocence. When it was her turn, Aisha chose to walk down the aisle herself, symbolizing her independence and freedom of choice. Her eyes locked on Ethan, standing at the altar in a simple black suit, his radiant smile welcoming. Like Maya's, his dimples reminded her of their youthful, dreamy days before Eleanor had torn them apart because of her race and background. Now, he stood ready to vow to be by her side forever. As she approached, Ethan took her hand and whispered, "You look the most beautiful, Aisha." She smiled, feeling all her fears melt away. The golden sunset bathed the backyard of the 3-bedroom house belonging to Aisha Thompson and Ethan Caldwell, where the laughter of Maya and Zoe echoed. The house in the same neighborhood where Aisha once raised her children alone was not large but cozy, adorned with chrysanthemum bushes planted by Zoe and a painting of an elephant by Maya hanging in the living room. 1 year after their wedding at the Haven Chapel, Aisha stood at the back door, her hand gently resting on her belly, where a new life was growing. She smiled, watching Ethan push Maya and Zoe on the swing, his eyes shining joyfully. Their life was now a picture of dreams once thought shattered. Aisha had returned to teaching part-time while completing her master's degree in education. Her job at Haven remained their primary source of income, helping her pay off the medical debts from the children's accident. Passionate about medicine, Ethan opened a free clinic in the neighborhood, serving families in need and fulfilling the dream he shared with Aisha 6 years ago. He was no longer the cold CEO of Haven, but a devoted father and husband, always present when Maya needed help with math homework, or Zoe wanted to hear stories about elephants. Maya and Zoe, now 6 years old, had adapted to their new life. They called Ethan simply Dad, and their home was filled with drawings of their family of 4. Once, Zoe asked, "Mom, are we the brightest stars for you and Dad?" Aisha hugged her and smiled. "You are my whole sky." But Maya, more sensitive, once whispered, "Does Grandma like us, Mom?" That question pierced Aisha's heart, because Eleanor Caldwell, though having apologized during reconciliation, remained a complicated presence. Eleanor had reached out twice in the past year. The first time, she sent Christmas gifts, books and toys, accompanied by a letter apologizing and promising to respect Aisha's boundaries. She requested a meeting the second time, but Ethan refused, saying she needed to prove her change over time. Though cautious, Aisha agreed to let Eleanor attend a family meeting that day. Keisha and Dr. Lena Carter, the therapist, acted as mediators. She did not want her children close to Eleanor if the latter still harbored the racial or class prejudices that had once torn her and Ethan apart. That afternoon, the backyard buzzed with a small party. Keisha brought homemade cookies, smiling brightly as Maya and Zoe ran to hug her. "Miss Keisha, look at our swing!" Maya exclaimed, tugging her hand. Keisha, who had stood by Aisha through every trial, was now an indispensable part of their family. She whispered to Aisha, "You did it, Aisha. Look at this family. You turned pain into happiness." When Eleanor arrived wearing a simple blue sweater, Aisha's heart pounded. She entered the yard, her gaze stopping at Maya and Zoe playing on the swings. Ethan stood beside Aisha, holding her hand like a shield. "Ms. Thompson." "Aisha," Eleanor began, voice trembling slightly, "I know apologies aren't enough. What I did 6 years ago, fabricating false evidence, judging you because of your race and background, was unforgivable. I was wrong, and I want to make amends, not just with you, but with the grandchildren." Aisha looked at her sharply, but with more openness than before. "Mrs. Caldwell, I don't trust you yet, but I'm giving you a chance for the children's sake. To be their grandmother, you must respect our family, Ethan and me." Eleanor nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I promise, Aisha. I will learn to love appropriately." She knelt and called Maya and Zoe. "Children, may I play on the swings with you?" Zoe, shy, looked at her mother. Aisha nodded gently, and Zoe smiled, running to hold her grandmother's hand. That evening, as everyone sat around the outdoor dining table, Aisha stood, holding a glass of orange juice. "I have good news," she said, hand on her belly, eyes searching Ethan's. "We're having another baby." Maya and Zoe cheered, jumping off their chairs to hug their mom and dad. "We're going to be big sisters," Maya shouted, while Zoe asked, "Will the baby have blue eyes like us?" Ethan, eyes sparkling with tears, embraced Aisha and whispered, "The baby will be as lucky as Dad, with Mom as the brightest star." Keisha raised her glass, smiling. "Congratulations to the most wonderful family." Sitting quietly, Eleanor raised her glass, her eyes no longer cold. "Congratulations," she said sincerely. Aisha looked at her and saw a glimmer of hope. Perhaps Eleanor was changing, albeit slowly. She wasn't sure if she could fully forgive, but she was willing to let her try for the children's sake. As the sun set, Aisha and Ethan stood on the porch, watching Maya and Zoe run around the yard chasing fireflies. Ethan pulled her close, whispering, "Aisha, I can't believe we made it here. After everything, we have each other, the kids, and the baby on the way." Aisha rested her head on his shoulder, smiling. "It's not luck, Ethan. We fought for this. Our love won." She looked at her children, their laughter blending with the evening breeze. This house, this family, was what she had dreamed of as a 23-year-old girl, madly in love with Ethan. They had endured pain, prejudice, and lies, but now they stood together against all odds. When Maya ran up, grabbing Aisha's hand, she said, "Mom, we caught a star for the baby." Aisha laughed, hugging her daughter. This was not just a love story. It was the story of a family choosing each other daily, forever.